Alright my friends, welcome to another video lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be discussing basic music editing in order to provide a music track for our interview project. So you can see I've got my track that was provided here in my MX bin, where it should be, and I'm currently working on version 3 of my sequence. Let's go back to version 2 here just for a minute, and you can see I completed the gathering and editing of all the sound bites I want to have in my interview. And we're just over 2 minutes here, which is just fine. So in version 3, I've actually got the music laid underneath all of those sound bites. So the track itself, if I double click on it here and look at it in the source monitor, you can see that the track itself is just over 4 minutes long. There's no way that's going to work with our just over 2 minute timeline here. So I need to do some editing to make this work. And just like we did fairly early on in the semester, I'm looking for the same kind of thing here. I want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end to this. And you can see that's kind of how this is arranged here. I've got the beginning portion here, the middle portion here, and then the end, which is kind of looped here to make it a little bit longer. So let's look at the beginning. What I'm going to do is place my playhead over the beginning here. I've muted the dialogue track here so we don't hear our interviewee speaking, because we're just trying to get the timing of the music right here so that it flows through the entire piece in a smooth fashion and uninterrupted. So with the beginning piece here, I've got my playhead at the very first frame, and with the clip selected, I'm going to hit the F key for match frame. And what that's going to do is bring up this clip here, only this selected one, in the source monitor with the in and out that I used to get it down here in the timeline. So overall, what we're looking at here is 3-point editing combined with sushi style editing. The main pieces that I'm bringing down into the timeline are handled semi 3-point style, kind of 2-point and drag. And then once I had the end portion here and I needed to do some looping, that I did purely in the timeline. So back up to the source monitor here, you can see this is the portion that I use, and I'm going to zoom in here just to make it a little bit easier to see what I've done. And here's the very beginning. And the beginning that I'm using is not the very beginning of the track. There's a little bit of ambient noise here they have at the beginning before the track actually kind of kicks in with a sort of glitchy noise here. So I didn't want to use that, so I set my endpoint right before the beginning, and I just kind of arrowed forward until I heard the very beginning of the glitch. Right there, there's a little click. And if I play from that point, the track starts. Now the other thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the fact that this is massively loud. It is way too high in terms of signal strength. And you can see when the waveform goes all the way to the edge like this, it's going to be super hot. So if I bring my playhead to the very strong portion of the song here and play, watch my meters. Pegged. Peaking. At or above 0. Not cool. So what I want to do is bring the gain down on this entire track here in the source monitor before it even makes it to the timeline. So with the source monitor active, the track loaded, I'm going to hit the G key and I'm going to bring it down by -11, dropping it by 11 dB. And you can see the waveform is much smaller now. This will get us an appropriate level in the timeline as well. So if I play now, you can see it's right around -12, and that's exactly what we want. All right, so here's the portion I'm using. I'm hitting Shift-I to get back to my endpoint, starting with the glitch. And it does this kind of cool, beat-oriented, mellow, almost trip-hop kind of thing. I'm going to go here to the end of the clip I chose, and you can hear how the phrasing of the music comes to the end of a portion before it begins the next one. And that's where I've placed my out point, right before it begins the next phrase. So let's play that. And then it stops. And then beginning the next one is right here. Dun, dun. So what I've done is isolated a complete repetition of this portion of the song that I can use as my beginning chunk. And it sounds like an introduction. It sounds like a beginning. I didn't go to the most busy, involved portion of the song for this because the beginning sounds very much like it's kicking off the piece. And that's why I chose this portion. So once I had this isolated up here, I just grab the drag audio only icon here and drag it down into the timeline. And there it is. There's my piece. So it's not exactly 3-point editing. It's kind of 2 points in the source monitor and drag it into the timeline. Kind of a hybrid between the two styles. So I'm going to get rid of that new one I dragged in and concentrate now on the middle portion of the song. So let's see what I did there. Again, I'm going to place my playhead at the very beginning of that portion. And with it selected, I'm going to hit the F key for match frame. And you can see, here's the portion I chose for the middle. So let's listen to how that sounds. So there are more instruments here. There's a guitar added. The drums now have a little bit of hi-hat going on. So it sounds like the piece is more developed at this point, which makes sense to have this happen after the interview's already gotten started and we're kind of rolling into the real meat of it. So I did the same thing where I dragged this into the timeline and placed it right after my first piece. So let me zoom in on that. And I'll expand the waveform here a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. And you can see I've placed a very short crossfade transition here, only 4 frames long. And let's listen to how we go from the beginning portion that I chose to that more developed middle portion. So you can see this portion is more basic here, indicative of a beginning. And then this portion is a little more involved, indicative of the middle. So let's hear that transition between the two one more time. Really kind of feels like it gets going at that point. And I rolled with this for about 1 minute and 10 seconds here. Okay. And then you can see there's a little bit of difference here that occurs before we go to the end portion. All right, so let's kind of listen to what happens here because the piece just continues to develop a little more as we move through the interview. See, that's pretty involved right there. There's a lot going on. And then it becomes a little more basic here, which is a great place to transition to our end portion. And here's the end right here. And basically what I did here, again, going back to the beginning of that and hitting my F key for match frame, you can see what I did here. Now originally I didn't have only this portion, I just used the entire end of it. Okay? Let's listen to that. It's similar to the beginning, which is great to bookend the piece that way, except the drums are a little bit different, so it doesn't sound like exactly the same thing, which is a good way to go for this. So I had basically the entire end here and drag that whole thing in down here, and you can see that it wasn't long enough. it didn't quite fit the sound bites that I had in the timeline at the end portion of the interview. So I needed to extend it. So in order to do that, I took a little piece of it and looped it. All right, so let me zoom in a little more here so you can kind of see exactly what I did. So I'm going to mute this portion so we can just hear what I just brought in. And I found a place where I thought it would be good to sort of repeat a section, and that was right here. Okay, so instead of playing through to the end right here, which kind of devolves a little bit and becomes a little more simple, I chose to repeat this portion right here. So again, I listened through, let it complete itself right there. And then I'm looking for that same down note again, which is that dun right there. You can hear it go from dun to dun right there. I made a cut. And then I also made a cut at the beginning of the phrase right there on the downbeat. You can hear that right there. Make the cut there. And now what I'm going to do is pull the end portion out and then take this piece and repeat it. So I'm going to hold down the Option key, click on it, and drag it over so that I get an exact copy. So now let's listen to how that turned out. See if it loops right. Not quite, and that's because I'm not quite there. I dragged it a little bit too far. Pull that back out there. And let's listen again. Okay, so it's really, really close. You can hear there's a little bit of glitch on the drum there. So what I'm going to do is heal that with a very short crossfade transition. I think I'm going to go with a 2 frame on this one and hear how that sounds. Perfect. Clean. Okay, so now I'm going to bring the end portion back, attach it to my new piece. Let's zoom in, make that easier to do. Okay. See if that works right. Okay, and then we'll heal that one as well with another 2 frame. See how that sounds. I think that worked rather nicely. All right, let's listen to our entire little edit here. Cool. Okay, so you can see how I constructed that. I'll get rid of that now. And that's how I made this end portion here. Worked really well. Now, in order to join this end portion to the middle portion here, I had to get a little bit fancy. So what I did was I found the natural edit point at the end of the middle portion here. And I will solo that so we can hear just that. And I placed a marker there. So let's just listen, and you can hear when I get to the marker, it's going to be the natural beginning of the next phrase. That's really almost all of music editing, is finding those beginning and ending points that are natural. And with a song that has a lot of beat orientation like this one does with so many drums in it, it's a little bit easier to do. Right there, you can hear that's the beginning of the next phrase. This one's resolving, coming to an end, it's going to start the next. Right there. So on that downbeat, you can hear it right there. Boom. I placed the marker. All right. All I did was have the clip selected and hit the M key to place a marker. And that indicated to me where I needed to place the beginning of my end, because again, this starts right on a downbeat as well. So if I solo this and remove this little crossfade here, you can hear it starts on a downbeat. Boom. There's just a drum right there at the beginning. Okay. Let's put that crossfade back on. So all I did was take this entire end piece here and slide it into place right here at the marker. It's a great timing method. And the reason I didn't have this trimmed all the way to here and then just line it up there is because I liked what this did after the edit point. So let's listen to that. The edit point happens and then it makes this nice little tone that I really liked. Just a little da fading. I like that. So I wanted that to trail off underneath the new piece that I put on. So when you listen to them together, they sound pretty cool. Really cool. So basically, a beginning, a middle, and an end. This is what I want you guys to do for your pieces. You don't have to do exactly what I did here. In fact, it'd be awesome if you did something different, but you want it to have a natural arc so that there is something that feels like a beginning, something that feels like a middle, and something that feels like an end. Okay? And speaking of the end, let's listen to the very end portion here where it actually trails off underneath. Nice. Very smooth. And it doesn't end abruptly. I mean, if I had this portion just stop right here, it would sound really odd. It just cuts off. So you want it to naturally end in some way. And usually the way the song ends inherently is the way to go for that. And that's what I went with here. I just let it do its thing. And it sounds really nice. So there you go. Basic music editing. So I look forward to you guys taking a crack at this in the U-Try. And that about does it for this video lesson, my friends. I'll see you again in the next one.